glad to be here with you and those who have joined us here. We're going to get this meeting kicked off with a prayer. And if those who are not, praying type or atheists, just please at least be respectful to those who are. I've asked Tim Walter to offer us the benediction today, and he's graciously accepted. So, Tim, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you.
Sure. Thanks, guys. Heavenly Father, Lord, on this weekend of all weekends, we just give thanks for the fact that we live in a place where freedom is founded on you. We give thanks not only that you have sacrificed your son for us, but our founding fathers sacrificed near everything to codify a form of government that had never been seen, that was built on your foundation, that understood that our rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness come from you, our creator, not man. They cannot be restricted. They cannot be anything but from you. Lord, I just ask that we come here today, that your wisdom and discernment is just showered on us, that we understand that this is not just a gripe session. This is truly a discussion about freedom, protecting it, and in the end, honoring you in that sacrifice and whatever is asked of us to do that. In Jesus' name, we just lift this prayer up and these men and women for just safety, health, and blessings. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Tim. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Before we get over to legislative updates, I'd like to go ahead and just, Jesse, we're just going to change up the schedule here a little bit, because I know Doug's on here, and I'm sure he's quite aware of everything that's going on, and he's running for congressional seat in the 5th District of Anne Arundel County, and I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to him so he can talk and go from there, and we'll just kind of see what happens from there and who joins us. Doug, it's over to you. If everyone else can mute your microphones while we're listening to Doug, I'd appreciate it.
Matt, thank you, everyone. Doug Sayers here. I'll do a quick introduction. First of all, I want to thank you all for what you are doing, staying civil. Matt just talked about a personal sacrifice. It's I'd say that's kind of what I'm doing. I'm putting my name out there. I put some of my own money out there to finance the campaign, and then you see a world pandemic going on. And you have to do the stuff you're doing now, the IT, in order to stay civil. We can't do door knocking. We can't hold events with 20, 30 people. So I think you are doing the right deal, pre-recording this, sharing it multiple ways is the way to go. It's going to be the way to go in the short-term future. I'll give you a little background about myself, is what I plan to do here. And then I'll talk about some of the history of America, how we got to where we were talking about with Tim and the prayer. And I'll talk about a little bit about federal state rights, and I'll talk about what's going on now in Maryland, and then the things you can continue to do. Quick background for me, I'm in Charles County. I'm in La Plata. I've been here 20 years. I'm a father of 4 children. I have a child that's in college. I have a 10th grader, 8th grader, and a 4th grader. I'm a single dad. I date a girl. I've been dating 6 years, but I'm divorced. Right now, I came up to running after I retired from the military because I saw where our country was going. I saw we elected a business person for president, and I agreed with President Trump's philosophy and what we needed to do to kind of restore America. And then I saw what I'll call the 2 coups in America, the dossier approach, which led to the Mueller report, and then the legislative coup of basically impeaching a president for basically calling out a foreign policy, foreign aid, basically auditing Ukraine. I've flown into 135 countries over about 10 years. I've been around a lot. I've flown Congress, is who my customer was. So I saw how they operated. I understand that. And I'm a gun owner. I've hunted all my life. I have guns. And one of the reasons that got me fired up is I think we have kind of got away from our Constitution, doing the things that were written, 244 years ago. And we seem to have a left-wing, liberal, progressive agenda mindset out there in the legislative branch that wants to move us away from that. And I think we have to do everything we can in order to call what I call an awakening to people in our area. We can only affect our area kind of as a grassroots area. And I think that's what your team is doing, and you're really focused on 2A, so I appreciate that. Let's go a little bit to the, let me also go back. So the important thing for me, I know you should all interview all your candidates for Congress, first of all. But the Maryland primary is 2A. I would appreciate your vote for Sayers for Congress. I won't mention that much more. But let's go ahead to history. You know, 1621 to 1776, for 150 years, we were British colonies under a monarchy. My family came across as pilgrims. They were the Mortons. They basically, when they landed, they did the Mayflower Compact. And that was our first constitution in America, basically, of laws for a society which they followed. There was a lot of discord in the colonies, as y'all know, between 1771 and 1776. Many of you have heard of Massachusetts. One of the things that occurred to Massachusetts was after the Boston Tea Party, the British monarchy declared martial law over Massachusetts, and they confiscated all the guns. There were some guns hidden, as you know, and that's what allowed us to have Lexington and Concord. And you've all heard of the stories of Paul Revere and the Minuteman. One of the things I did in my career as a military, I was part of the National Guard, and that kind of goes back to the Minuteman history. You had 1 minute back in the day to go get your gun to fight for your colony, for your community. And they were local residents ready to fight with liberty within 1 minute. And it's important to remember the history of how we got to where we're at with our Bill of Rights, and that's why I'm giving a little bit of history. Many of you have probably heard of the Maryland 400. That's very important in Maryland's history. If you haven't heard of it, I would encourage you to go back and read it, but a brief history of it. The Maryland 400 were 400 Marylands that basically covered George Washington's retreat out of New York. Out of those 400 Marylanders, 250 died and 100 were captured, which only left about 100 surviving. But the Marylanders, basically kind of what you're doing by protecting, in my mind, as a Marylander now, they protected George Washington's retreat out of New York, which allowed us to continue the American Revolution. And that's important because we were able to win our revolution and then draft a constitution. After the American Revolution, 1783, 1789, our founding fathers realized that we had to protect individual Bill of Rights and individual rights. Many of you heard of James Madison and George Madison, the ecologists. One thing they did when they wrote our Constitution, it's important that y'all understand this, not just the Second Amendment. They designed basically 10 amendments, and they were the first 10 amendments to the Constitution. They were there for a reason. Freedom of religion, it's kind of why the Pilgrims came over here. They didn't want to study the religion that English was doing, and English said basically you can go to the colony. Massachusetts had their guns confiscated, and that's why they wanted to ensure we could have also the right to bear arms. Then we also had search and seizures. That's where the British monarchy were searching and seizing the houses and quartering soldiers in their housing. So the Bill of Rights, each one of them have a specific reason they were written. And the important thing to remember as y'all move forward also in a talking point, they were ratified. That means every state agreed to it. And by doing the Bill of Rights, it's where the government, it restricts the government from coming to that right. And that's one thing we see a lot of now going on. I would say more in the last probably 30 years, I think, where state governments are putting more restrictions against the federal right, and they're not supposed to do that. And if you don't call it out, just like you know when a child takes a cookie from a cookie jar and they take 2 or 3, if you don't call it out and they're supposed to get 1, they're going to take 3 the next day. And that's kind of what's going on with our Bill of Rights. So the Bill of Rights is federal. It's an amendment to the Constitution. And the important thing to remember is it's the highest federal document, the Constitution. So 2A, the right to bear arms, is a restriction on the government established at the federal level, and the states can't restrict the 2A. So what are the states doing? A lot of the states are passing legislative laws now on arms. These are actions by the state that are unconstitutional. So you are starting to see more and more now, and I think it's very important when you elect a president to understand that president gets to set the Supreme Court, which is your third branch of government, and that is very important. That's one of the main reasons I supported President Trump last time around, because I knew he'd have a chance to set the Supreme Court, which he did with 2 Supreme Court justices, and it's very important moving ahead. Any change to the 2A must come from the federal legislative branch, House and Senate. It's key that you all elect a representative that understands your Bill of Rights and the Constitution, is going to hold the line on 2A. And if you have a chance to interview anybody else, I would make sure y'all ask them where they stand on protecting your Bill of Rights, and specifically in your case, the 2A. Silence on 2A is a weakening of individual rights. So your voice, by doing what you're doing and voting, is your way to have a means to be heard in a civil manner. It's very important to be civil as we do this in a civil society. As I mentioned, you may have heard a lot about, we have different parties, but there's a left sector of a party, the left-wing liberal progressives, that believe our Constitution was old. It was written a long time ago and it doesn't apply now. And what they want to do is basically go in as a legislative body and update your Constitution is what they want to do. Left-wing liberal progressive, that's their mindset. They don't believe, they think it was written by people a longer time ago. They didn't have the foresight of what's going to occur today, so they want to update it and they want to change it. And that's very important why you elect people that believe in your Constitution and not go weaken it, because that would be the legal means to do it by the legislative branch. Let's keep going here a little bit more. One thing I'll talk about, what's currently going on now in America when it comes to your Bill of Rights. And one thing I'll show you here, I'll stop my video and I'll see if I can show this to you here. It's important that you kind of see this document here I'm holding up here. This is a filing to your Supreme Court that's based off a gentleman. It's Brian Mazipo and Maryland Rifle Pistol Association versus basically Maryland State Police. And this has been petitioned to your third branch, the Supreme Court. Supreme Court, that gentleman actually lost his appeal at the state level, the circuit level, and he appealed to the Supreme Court. The gentleman in St. Mary's County, in this filing, the Supreme Court says, yes, I want to hear this case that Maryland is restricting this individual's Second Amendment. So if you're not aware of that, you need to understand within the 5th District, there's one individual, and there's only 8 individuals in America that are getting their court date with the Supreme Court based on their Second Amendment. So 2 years ago, about the time Brian was doing his concealed carry permit and got denied, I did the same deal. I've never been arrested. I have guns. I've served in the military. I've shot M16s, qualified on an M9 for 9 years, shot a .243, 50 cal, everything. And I applied for the concealed carry, and I was still in the military, and I've been hacked like 5 times, and I was denied. And I thought about appealing, and I was like, that didn't seem right. One of the things I did is I decided to run for Congress for multiple other reasons. So that was one of the reasons, like, you're infringing on my rights. I think my rights are being infringed on. Well, this gentleman down here felt it so much that he filed a lawsuit. And now it's actually trickled all the way to the top to the Supreme Court. So you need to be aware of that one. I've actually, when I did this and I was researching this topic, I came to the conclusion that somebody, I'll say ABC, needs to sue Maryland. And that is what is occurring now. So you need to know that. You need to track that. Where is it at right now? Right now, they got the briefs back from the individual. They got the briefs back from the Attorney General for Maryland. And you can look that up if you want to. It's in public record and read all about it. One interesting thing they talk about, a lot of history about that, is even in Massachusetts, as I mentioned that, people in Massachusetts, you can imagine their muzzle loader. They were scared after the revolution. This is like in the 1810s, I believe, that they didn't like the muzzle loader in public. And that's kind of like the concealed carry. And one thing they talked about in there, and then they defended the point, was, I didn't realize it till I researched it so much, that Massachusetts required people to go pull a bond. So if you wanted to have a concealed carry, you knew you weren't going to shoot somebody unless you were in harm. And you were so faithful in what you believed that you would go pull a bond. And basically it was bonded in the courthouse in Massachusetts that you could carry your gun, and people knew that you weren't going to shoot them. And if you did, you had a bond. It's unreal. I don't even think we have bonds against companies now for construction and other stuff, but it's amazing to think that was going on over 200 years ago in our own country. So track that. As we move forward, you're going to see basically a lot of stuff going on in the country. I think you have a primary coming up, as I mentioned here, in 2 June. It's civil. The 2A became really big, just like Matt mentioned, out of Virginia. And if you track the news yesterday, Virginia actually did more laws in the legislative path with the executive branch in Virginia. And you have to be aware now and call this out in Maryland. And if you don't be civil, we could end up in the same place, because basically our Maryland legislative branch is heavy one party. And anytime you're heavy one party, I don't care what side you're on. You can be independent, Democrat, Republican. If you're heavy one party, they have a chance to push their agenda. And that's where you have to have some checks and balances. Our government has 3 branches of government for a reason. But anytime you have one power solely in charge of multiple branches of government, you have a chance to get a lot of stuff pushed on a society that maybe the other society minority doesn't believe in. So with that, you kind of see where I'm at. I gave you a little bit of history. I gave you an introduction of where I'm at, the history of how we got to our Bill of Rights, and the current issues going on in the 5th District. At this point, I'll turn it back over to Matt if he wants to ask any specific questions or any stances of where I'm at on 2A.
Hey, thanks, Doug. I really appreciate the background and the feedback that you gave us. Real quick before we go forward, those who've just joined us, I went ahead and muted you. You can unmute yourself when you're ready to ask a question, or muting us mute yourself when you're not speaking, so that we don't have a lot of feedback loop and background noise, so that we're not talking over each other, so everyone can hear. Well, Doug, I really appreciate the message that you shared, and from one veteran to another veteran, thank you very much for your service, and thank you for stepping up. Some key points that you made is the importance to realize not only our history, but the way forward. And the way forward is one that seeks a solution through the remedies that are currently available to us and exhaust those. I believe that's paramount to our success. And I believe in order to really kind of change things and to change the body of government, each person needs to be actively involved. And it's unfortunate that we didn't get more people on this meeting, and hopefully we can start doing this weekly, and it will build up over time, and that the small wheel, like a snowball, can turn into a big wheel.
Matt?
Yes.
This is Tim. Matt, can I say a couple things real quick?
Please, go ahead.
Doug, I ran for state delegate in 14 and 18 in a heavy blue area. If we hadn't redistricted, I would have won in 14, but I got crushed because of the anti-Trump wave in 18. I'd like to chat with you offline on some messaging, but for everybody else, I'll be candid. This is my personal opinion. We have 2 options. And there is no in between, because we've been trying in between for years, especially since 12. And 12 was the height of the in between years. We either are headed, it is literally, it's either the ballot or I can't remember what they call it, the rifle. If we do not lift each other up as candidates and men like this who step up, then it only goes one way. You can protest. This is the longest running one-party state in the history of the country. It's over 125 years. They're not going to change. They're only going to get worse. And states like Virginia are going to embolden them. So our first piece from a civil perspective is to lift Doug up. And this is my soapbox that I tell all the gun guys all the time. That means we got to get off the Facebook. We got to get off Maryland shooters. We got to send money. We got to make phone calls. We got to door knock. We got to, Doug, can I come sit in your house and put stamps on letters? And we got to help with messaging. So just food for thought, guys. To be quite frank, we're at a tipping point, and this is where we're at. So we either decide to run, and Doug, I'm going to give you my number. If you're ready to take it, you can call me. I can give you advice from a 2-time loser, and acknowledge that's what it is. But we have to, we've got to get outside of our comfort zones, and we really got to do this hard. So just food for thought. Doug, you got a pen?
Yeah, go ahead.
443.
Okay.
848.
Okay.
6291. I'd love to chat with you. You're wicked smart, but as a dude has had to work in a blue area, and I know you got some blue areas, I just got some couple thoughts for you.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tim.
All right, brother. And thanks for your service.
Thank you very much, Tim, for that. And I want to just share Tim's sentiments there. We're at a tipping point, right? We still have resources available to us. And I believe from a personal perspective that if we don't use those resources that are still currently available, we stand in the judgment of God. I believe that while we can sue for peace, while we can sue for the better nature of men, and we have those avenues to approach, that's what we have to do. We're required to do that. And I don't think, everybody's talking about, second Civil War. It may come down to that. I certainly hope it doesn't do that. And I'm certainly not going to start it. I think it's something that will happen if it does happen, it'll happen on its own, and it'll be a defensive posture rather than offensive. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people in this group that want to carry the fight to a lot of innocent people right now, and I don't think that's right. And I'm not saying necessarily this group for Anne Arundel County. I'm saying those who are Second Amendment, people are tired, people are angry, people are ready to take action. Well, they need to take action by voting, by supporting people like Doug, by running for office, and appealing to the better nature of our fellow citizens, our human beings. And I like what Doug was mentioning about the lawsuit that's gone up before the Supreme Court. I think we should be filing federal lawsuits every time there's some draconian legislation that's introduced in the House here in Maryland, suing for a redress or reprieve or relief, a redress of our rights being violated. And hemming up the way because they're going unchallenged. And right now, just like what Virginia did, the legislative body went ahead and moved forward and pushed things through without public comment. The public already made its comment before, but they weren't there this time to defend themselves and to rally up there. So they went ahead and just did it. I've talked to some people who are in Virginia who assure me that not only their local sheriffs, but their state police and everybody's on board that they're not going to enforce these laws that were just signed by the governor of Virginia. But that's their business, and what's happening over there is going to be spilling over to here and everywhere else, because we have these Bloomberg groups that are going around. They're trying to affect legislation in states they're not even residents of. Personally, I think that should be unlawful, but we're doing it, and that's exactly what's happening. And so we have these people with lots of money coming in, and we're just the small people. We're just small people, small pockets. I'm not rich. You're not rich. But it takes every one of us, and we're only strong in numbers. We're only strong in numbers. We're not going to accomplish anything if we're just doing it one at a time, piecemealing it together. That's my soapbox on that. And anybody else that wants to unmute themselves to go ahead and speak, share, talk, ask Doug some questions. It's an open forum, so please jump in and just take turns.
Can you hear me, Matthew?
Loud and clear. Loud and clear.
Okay. First of all, thanks, Doug, for talking to us today. And hello, everybody. My name's Scott, and I'm actually in Charles County, but I belong to all the sanctuary groups and pretty much most of the 2A groups. And what Tim was talking about was deadly accurate. The knocking on the doors, the getting out. We have to change the tide on being keyboard commandos 100% all the time. It just so thanks, Tim. I have been working on a project that is coming together really, really fast. It's going to be a national thing, and we're going to have a group. And basically what we're going to do is we're going to put boots to ground, is what we're saying. We're going to have basically a team that recruits, trains, and mobilizes people on the sites where we need them, at the state houses, at, the White House, not the White House, but at the Capitol. In every state, we'll have state directors, we'll have members who are ready to go at, one phone call. They'll be mobilized and they'll go and they'll express the ideas and the sentiment that we want them to. Much like our damn near enemies, people like Antifa, Black Lives Matter, OFA, they mobilize. And that's where the left is beating the shit out of us. They mobilize, they get in people's faces, they get their message out there one way or another. We can do it better. We can do it civilly. We're not going to endorse violence. Obviously, the unspoken is defend yourself legally. Self-defense is a legal right. So if one of these millennial guys come up to you and they start something and they swing at you, you have a legal right to do something, to react. But anyway, we are going to work so that we can do the boots on the ground and have people there. And hopefully we'll also be countering people like Antifa and these other groups that show up for these marches, because there was one in D.C. that I happened along. I was in for lunch one day, and they were protesting guns. And there were no people there that I could see that were countering the anti-movement, and they were loud and all over the place and acting stupid. So we need to counter these people. We need the media to see us when we're out there. And we need to make a big impact. And this morning I was talking to Kurt, what is his name? Kurt Santini. He's running for lieutenant governor of Virginia. And if you saw some of those laws that they enacted in Virginia, one of the biggies is that red flag law. He put it right on them, and he's going to use it. Trust me, Northam is going to use those laws to further their agenda. It's going to happen. And we're losing the 2A battle there. And Virginia is a key state for all of us. It's in the national spotlight. Everybody sees what Virginia does and says. Everybody's watching Northam. Thank God the 2A rally went peaceful in Richmond. That was a big plus for us. But we need to help candidates like Kurt, and like Doug. There's also, I can't remember her name. I'm sorry, my memory's terrible, but I think her name is Kate or Amanda. Can't remember her name. She's running for governor. And they're all in on these kind of efforts, these boots to ground that I'm talking about. So you guys are all in this group. You're in several other groups, I believe, if I'm seeing the names correctly. And you'll see me announce something. And I'm going to take in people for this. It's a grassroots at the ground floor, but it's something that's going to just blow up fast. And we're going to need to stay on top of it, keep it organized, and make an impact. We've got to get our message to these legislators so that they start leaning our way. And they know that if they don't, they're going to hear from us. They're going to see us. We're going to be in their faces. We're going to be questioning them. We're going to bring the media there to question them. We'll embarrass them for making stupid decisions. So anyway, again, it's at the beginning stages. There's a lot of planning to do on how you attack things, how you go about doing it, and so forth. So there will be some training first, and hopefully we can mobilize within the next 60 days, start mobilizing people. So that's all I've got, and I welcome everybody. You can hit me up on Facebook if you want, and I can send you an email with some details and where we stand, and we can take it from there. But just wanted everybody to know, and we really need, like Matthew was saying, we need to litigate. We need to litigate more because we're losing the battle, and we're not going to get the rights back once we lose them. That's just the way it's going to go. They're going to keep taking them, and it's going to make it easier every time for them to keep infringing on our rights. So definitely need boots to ground, start knocking on doors and talking to people.
Yeah, I want to, Scott, if I could, I want to reaffirm something because it's very relevant to what you just said. And Doug, I'm sure you're tracking this. Do you guys know why the ATF and the IRS were created? It was created as two agencies to oversee the implementation of prohibition. How long ago has prohibition been repealed, and yet what do we still have?
ATF.
We have ATF and the IRS. The government never gives back what it takes.
Absolutely right. Good point.
That's a very good point. Thanks, Tim, for that. And Scott, I just want to echo what you're saying, and thank you. I wish we had a lot more people. Like I said, I'll stop saying that, keep pounding it, but we each need to do our part every single day. We're going to hold these meetings weekly. They can be just for a chit chat, sharing a beer and a coffee. They also can be used to work and get down to work, and we can break down in meetings. What I was hoping to get set up at this meeting was to develop 5 groups within Anne Arundel County. And maybe, Scott, we can just do this as a Maryland whole and all together. But there's 5 groups I was looking at setting up, and let me know what you guys all think. But I was thinking of setting up 1, a legislative group, 2, a research group, 3, a correspondence group, 4, an education group, and 5, community engagement. So the legislative group would be the one who looks for new legislation, see what the bills are about, and they can brief and update everybody what's happening, what's going on. The research group would be the group that would look for empirical articles that can refute the legislation they're putting through. That's something that I'm pretty good at. I'm graduating here in about 3 weeks, 4 weeks with a master's degree in developmental psychology. So I'd be interested in leading that group, but there's plenty of research out there to show that gun control, as they want to keep calling it, doesn't work. It just doesn't work. And there's other things that actually do work that they're not even trying to do. And there's plenty of actual scientific articles and research that we're not even tapping into as a Second Amendment community. We're not using science, and we need to hit it with science. We need to hit it with common law, and we need to hit it with case law. And there's plenty of case law that's been established in favor of the Second Amendment, as well as our other constitutional rights. Third group is a correspondence group. That group will be the one that reaches out to our legislative bodies, whether it's the county, whether it's the state, or whether it's the federal. And that's their sole function. They're take the research and the legislative research and compile it into a letter and start hitting these people up and putting it in a letter so that it becomes a part of the official record. When you send a letter refuting someone's legislation, it becomes official part of the correspondence for that legislative thing, and it needs to be on record, right? And then we have what's the education, which is to teach everybody about the rights, the Constitution, the Second Amendment, what they can and can't do, and what they need to do. That's group number 4. And then the fifth group I was proposing, and if I'm talking too fast, I'll paste this down here in the chat section here in just a minute, is community engagement. And the community engagement is to do your door knocking, right? To support people like Doug, to invite people to the Second Amendment rallies so that they can learn about what the Second Amendment is. And I think if we can break down into specific groups, we assign people that are head of each group, and then they have tiered levels underneath them, working within the group, we can actually do this, because we have to be organized, right? And the left is organized like crazy, and they show up. But the one thing that they don't have for them is they don't have common sense, and they're radical. So we can beat them at this game. We're too lazy, we're apathetic. And I'm grateful for this virus. I'm going to say it right here, right now. I'm grateful that entertainment is shut down. I'm grateful that our sports are shut down. I'm grateful that we cannot be given our false titles that keep us pacified while our rights are being taken away, because that's exactly why we're given this entertainment and our music, is to corrupt our minds, it's to pollute our souls, and it's to distract us from what's happening to us, because while we're in a pot, we're like a frog, and we're being boiled alive to death, and we're being entertained so that they can do it. And taking away these layers, which they're excited because they think this is working for their benefit, they're going to be able to destroy Trump's presidency and be able to bring in swinging gun control. But what they don't realize is people are looking around now. People aren't pacified with their Major League Baseball teams. I mean, that's become America. It's football, entertainment, movies, music. That's it. There's no freedom and patriotism in that, but that's what they've made our patriotism. So we're not focusing on the right things anymore. And now we can get back down to principles. Now we can get back down to basics, to family, to God, what our core values are, what's really important. We're really limited in what we can do. We can't go out door to door right now. We could, but you have a health risk, and then you also have violating the governor's orders of going out and about and socializing and putting yourself at risk. Is it worth it? It might be for some. I can't encourage you to do one thing or the other. I'm going to encourage you to follow the law and to work within the means that you have. But we have these different things going on, and there's a lot more we can do, and we need to do it, plain and simple. So. Anybody else want to pipe in and ask Doug any questions or any other comments? It's an open forum. Just unmute yourself and make sure you do mute yourself when you're not talking.
Hey, Matt, Doug, I was going to follow up with a couple of deals. One, the door knocking, I'm doing a lot of virtual calling just like you're doing now. But if y'all go to my Facebook, one way is if you all do want to help me, you can go to Sayers for Congress on Facebook. You can look up my profile, Doug Sayers. You can share that to your friends, make a positive comment. You can go to Sayers for Congress on the internet. You can share that to your friends. Another idea, I spoke at Calvert County 2A, and Charles 2A has one over here, and then I saw you all. There's a lot with synergy if y'all could do something with like the NRA, the Maryland Rifle Pistol Association, maybe take this to a higher level, Matt, instead of me, you, Tim talking and Matt and Scott, maybe see if we can do a forum with a subject matter expert, and then we log in and listen to you all and ask questions. That's what I would recommend you doing, and get more of a national audience. Take Anne Arundel County and blast it out, not just the 5th district, but across Maryland, almost all the way to the Mississippi River, with a broader audience is what I would suggest, using the information technology like we're doing now.
Well, I appreciate that, Doug. And when I started this process off in March, I did reach out to political organizations, to the Republican Party. I reached out to multiple different groups, and the only people that responded to me was the Libertarian Party for Anne Arundel County. And they actually had their, I can't remember his name now. His name's David Wool, I believe. He's the president of the Libertarian Party for Anne Arundel County. He actually came to our meeting.
Okay.
When I sent a message out to the Republican chair for Anne Arundel County, they ignored my message. They didn't reply. I reached out to multiple people to try to get them involved and to try to share this information and get them on board. So if you have someone that will be willing to listen, to get involved, to help promote this so we can get it out there, that would be much appreciated.
Yeah, I should photo of you a couple of business cards I have of people that I've heard them speak, and they speak as a nonpartisan across both parties, and I think that's kind of where this subject at. It's a right, no matter what party you're in. And
hey, this Tim, Doug, you're in and I'll talk to you offline, so I'm not going to go detail, but this is mostly for our group. You're in an awkward position here in Maryland as a Republican and a pro 2A guy. For us, and we'll get into this with the legislative branch, when you look at who voted for red flag and then backpedaled and we won't get traction in the GOP within Anne Arundel County, at least. I've been bucking them for 6-7 years as part of them. I'm an independent now because of all the nonsense that I saw. But again, my personal opinion and experiences with them, they're not going to engage us. It's their moral ground that they stand on has no foundation. It's basically, hey, listen, we got to worry about the blue guys, and we got to do this. It's the Hogan attitude. I'm just not going to talk about it. And in 2014, I think I was the first delegate that had him in his first run after the primary come out, and he brought the bus, and I had a lot of pro-gun guys paid a little extra to meet him on the bus, and he was frank with them. I'm not going to talk about the Second Amendment, and he never has.
Wow.
So that is the head of the Republican Party in Maryland, and he's an Anne Arundel County guy.
Guys, I think one group that we really need to reach out to across the county and across the state is the fastest growing demographic of new shooters. That is females. Females are taking more training. They're buying more firearms. They are the top money spender right now, not only in the state, but in the country. That's where we need to make a big push at. Any organization that that has a lot of females in it, reach out to them, because they are the up and coming shooter, the up and coming delegate. Look how many ladies there are in the political arena right now. There's a ton of them out there. They have a strong voice, and they're getting traction. If we can find some of them that are pro 2A, reach out to them and bring them into your group, whatever county or group you're in. Bring them in there.
Absolutely, Michael. Thank you for that. And I don't have to be the only one that's running ads. You guys can run ads too on Facebook and set yourselves up. And whatnot. So that's something to think about as well. But yeah, share it. Get out there. Contact people. It gets hard when you're just the only person that's doing the reaching out and contacting and trying to remind everybody. Everybody's home. They should be, right? Nobody's out. And we should have had a lot more people joining us. Do you have my... Sorry, guys. Hold on. Sorry. So that's what we got to do. I try to post messages on there. There's a few keyboard warriors on there that get upset that we're not doing anything. Then when they're invited to these meetings, they don't come. So we got to keep recruiting and keep pushing it out there. And we really just need to join forces, like Scott, you were saying. We really need to come together. Yes, this is local and organized, because I believe it's important as a county that we get together with people that are close by, because then we can support each other. We can help each other. And then we can spread out from there. But I agree, Doug. We need to reach out larger than just our county. My initial ad that I ran for this group was just Anne Arundel County. I'm planning to expand it to all of Maryland and probably the DMV area. I may go further than that as time progresses to see what the kind of the response is. But as you know, since you're running on campaign, it can be kind of expensive. But we have legislative body here in Maryland that isn't interested in adhering to the restraints of the Constitution. Even those who claim to be conservative, even probably libertarians and stuff like that. For me, I'm a strict constitutionalist. That's all I am. I'm not a party person. If it doesn't adhere to the Constitution, I want nothing to do with it. And I think that anytime that we try to use case law, and Supreme Court said this about the Constitution, is you're trying to wiggle stuff in to create a wedge between the rights of the people and the government. And as I said this in the very first meeting, and I'll just say it again, is that our government has not passed any legislation in over 200 years to further restrict itself since the Constitution. All legislation that's been introduced since then has been to restrict the people.
And Matt, I'll add to that. Almost universally, the major Supreme courses, now I'm qualifying that statement in a broad brush with major, have also been to support the government against the people. Now, Matt, back to your 5 committees. I stay very busy, but I would love to help on the research and the education. Just so everybody knows, here in Anne Arundel County, we have the Institute on the Constitution that teaches. I teach I call it a small group, but it's a 12-week session at the federal level. I'm wrapping up the final semester of this term, but I teach that. And just so everybody knows, it's kind of the biblical view. It goes into all the way from the Mayflower Compact. Matt, you've said some key things, common law, which brings up the term posse. I know that has a funky thought when you think the word posse, but that's where militia comes from. So I'd love to help on education as well. And of course, I offer that to any of you guys if you're interested. We'll fire back up in the fall, and we take it from the beginning to today.
Nelson, you have any thoughts or questions? I know you kind of got in here late. You've been quiet there, sir, and I see you there.
No, I'm just taking it all in.
All right, James, yourself? You got yourself muted there, buddy. You're typing. I think you don't have a microphone. Is that right?
There we go. I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead, James.
No, I'm just trying to kind of take things in as well and trying to stay involved. You know, I think getting the word out is key, and what Michael said about getting it out to women is very crucial. I mean, my wife and I recently joined On Target because she wanted to learn how to handle a firearm. She wanted to buy her own firearm, stuff like that. So, you know, I think that is a crucial point. I mean, it's all nice having all us guys here, but, you know, we're only half the world. Actually, we're a little bit less than half the world.
That's true. Thank you very much. How about Michael Neese? We haven't heard from you, sir. I see you there. Would you like to go ahead and take the floor?
Sorry, I'm the quiet type. I'm not a gun owner, but I've shot plenty of rifles, pistols, as a kid, as a teenager, did pretty well. Always supported the Second Amendment. I actually posted on the group, you know, what are the recommendations for self-defense. I've been researching it for years. It's just a matter of getting the money together for me. But I'm always running into, especially with the current situation with COVID, everybody says, oh, well, this is just saving lives. I'm like, but we've relinquished our rights. And if it was this easy to do it, when's it going to happen again? It's going to happen again. They're going to say, okay, we're going to take this away. We're going to lock you in your houses again. We're going to shut down your businesses because we knew we could do it before. And I view the rights of gun ownership in the same way. It's, if we can take it away, we're not going to give it back. We're going to see how easy it is, and we're going to keep taking it and taking it and taking it until it's all gone, until we're England, you know, and everybody's waving batons to try and chase down the bad guys. It doesn't work. So that's kind of where I am. I'm kind of at the edge of the group, but I support the group. I support the group deeply. And Matt, like you, I strictly adhere to the Constitution. I've been a Republican. I've been a libertarian, and I find things that I like in both groups. I find things in both groups that I'm not too fond of. But one thing that's always been constant, and that was the Constitution. So if something is not going to adhere to that, then like you, I'm willing to set everything else aside and say, look, this is where we started. This is what founded our country. Why aren't we sticking to it? And that's all I got.
Right.
Hey, Mike, Doug, again, one thing I talk some of the, a little bit like you, I compare it, our Second Amendment, think about it like our First Amendment. Our Second Amendment, they're saying, hey, you got to show why you need to carry a gun. And I would say, well, why do you need a speedy trial? That's the next one coming. Why do you need to assemble and protest? Why do you need to practice your religion? If you can restrict the Second Amendment, the next restrictions are going to come to the other amendments. But we hear a lot of restrictions on the Second Amendment, but you see the same parallel that can come easy. Once they restrict one, they're going to restrict another one.
Doug, I would posit back to what you and Michael said, that because they've gotten away with religion and the Second Amendment specifically, that has empowered them to do where we're at today. They assault all of it. And again, I'm like Matt, there's a spiritual component to this for me. But if I can take your most basic function away, your right to defend yourself, then I can take anything.
And that's what they're going for. That's what they're going for right now. They're exploiting the coronavirus, and whatever your views on it or not, they're exploiting this opportunity, right? I believe it's a legitimate. I believe COVID-19 is legitimate. All right, I do, but I also believe that they're exploiting this opportunity to make leaps and bounds. We have Nancy Pelosi, who has become the arbitrator of the House and is the only vote that matters now, and nobody needs to have a legislative body there to be present to do anything. And this is it. I mean, this is their reach, and they're going to reach all the way.
Yeah, with that, Matt, that's why it's important in this district. So the vote person that gets the votes for Nancy Pelosi is your appointed, elected, current congressional leader, Steny Hoyer. He counts the votes. He gets them to rally behind whatever the House Democrats. He's your number 2 House Democrat. So unless we unseat that, challenge it at the polls, he's going to think he's been blessed. Silence is a yes. And the 5th district will go down, keep agreeing with the current philosophy. So we have to continue to stand up. I appreciate it, everything you are doing.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate it. Go ahead.
Doug, do you have a primary?
Yes. There's 2 June. There's 4 additional Republicans that are running. So I'm in the, I'll say a dogfight for the primary first. But then the general is 3 November. I think you have to be in Charles County, close to Prince George's, to win. You can win as a Republican in St. Mary's and Calvert, but unless you have friends in Charles that can swing, it's an upside down U. You're basically at the U point in Arundel. And then you need to, the Republican is on the Calvert and St. Mary's side, and then you have to be over here by me and Scott in Charles County in order to have some networks to get the independents and Democrats, and then you got to come up through Prince George's County to unseat him. So that's my analysis. It's what I call an awakening, gets you about a 65% chance of winning, and that was pre-COVID-19, and I think we were starting to have an awakening in America. Now we have to continue to awaken people. A 51% chance is a coordinated effort, and I call a coordinated effort the stuff we're doing today, educating people, and you squeak by with 1 or 2%. Historically, this district has always went 70-30. Doesn't matter how much money you put into it, the person loses by 70%. So the best case is a huge awakening, a larger Republican turnout, and it gets to about 64%. That's the best case. So yes, I have a primary on 2 June. And it sounds like what I'm hearing, Maryland's going to go heavy absentee with maybe 1 to 2 voting places open for people to stand in line at 6 feet apart on 2 June. That's what I'm hearing, but it hasn't been official yet.
Yeah, Doug, I'll share with you, and this is education for everybody else. Having been a candidate and analyzed the crap out of 2 elections, even in a heavy blue area, when it came to the absentee ballots, they always came in much that they didn't follow the statistics of the district from a voting perspective. And then when I peeled back the 2 elections before that, it was the same. So just a heads up, it never favors freedom, those numbers, in my experience, at least in heavy blue districts. Even there, somehow they're managing to skew the numbers.
Well, guys, I'd like to say a couple quick things, and then I've got to run. First, has anybody seen, or let me just say, there are 2 examples that we can now give to people when we're out talking about the Second Amendment. The people that come up to you, I think Doug was saying about some of them, but they say, guns create violence, they create homicides, and they go down that route. We have 2 case studies now that tell us that it's just the opposite. Brazil had the toughest gun laws in the world and had the highest homicide rate in the world. And a new president came in a year ago and he repealed the gun laws. Everybody's getting guns like crazy over there. And the homicides and gun violence went straight down in 1 year. So now they're way down the list and they keep going. So that's a case study in another country to say, look, it does work. Another one on a kind of a flip side is New Zealand. They had that mass shooting over there. So what they do, they put out to where they wanted to collect all the arms from all their citizens. They would pay them for it. Well, it turns out they got all the arms from their good citizens, but they did not get the guns and the weapons from the people who were criminals and, so forth. There's a lot of them that did not get turned in, and I forget what the numbers are, but basically the criminals held onto their guns, and the criminals already had 70-some% of the weapons in that country. So the point is that these gun restriction laws do not work. It's quite the opposite. Just like when Florida did their thing years ago and crime went down, because they could carry guns. It's been proven over and over and over again, but the left does not want people to hear that. And now we have proven statistics. We have the case study that we can show people. If anybody wants that, I can email you those 2 articles that have all the specific numbers. That's one thing. The other thing is, Matt, I'll volunteer for the legislative for now. I do that anyway. I pull all the bills, I go through them, and I write summaries, doing that for other groups. So I'll be glad to do that here as well, whatever you want.
Perfect.
And then last, the group that I was speaking about, just to give you an indicator, right now, the amount of people, like Matt, you were saying that nobody wanted to return your calls or your emails. It's because you're this little teeny guy just starting a group and all that. Right now, I've got 135,000 people for this group right now, and that's 1 week of work. So I haven't gone outside of Facebook yet, and that's just Facebook. You go to LinkedIn, the professional community. These guys, most of them on there are, professional, career-oriented people. They're not what society would say, well, there's, a gun-toting redneck. And, there's a lot of 2A groups on LinkedIn, and there's a lot of people there that believe in the Second Amendment. So you can, I've got 25,000 followers on LinkedIn on my personal account, and we can utilize that. We can get to people. And that's not including getting with all these other organizations like you're talking about, the NRA, Gun Owners of America, and so forth, and get them and help. They can help us get the word out. And the group here and all the county groups are just as important as any other. We need that. We need it. So that's it. That's all I've got for now.
Thanks for that, Scott. I appreciate that. And for stepping up like that. Whatever you can do to help promote this, promote us, we'll also likewise promote you. and keep this going. Most definitely, those who want to take part and who want to help lead one of the committees, whatever, like yourself, Scott, I can give you moderator access to Arundel County, so you can post as a county if you'd like to, or you can still post yourself, Scott, whichever you want to do.
Well, actually, Matt, I don't want to do that
Okay.
just because I'm assuming that I'm going to get crazy busy in the next couple of weeks,
That's
months,
fine.
and I'll volunteer to do something that I'm already doing that'll help this group as well, because that's time consuming in and of itself.
Well, I'm not asking you to moderate. I'm just saying I can give you moderator access so you can post your information that you're sharing elsewhere. So
Sure.
you're just cross-sharing it across different groups, but
Sure.
as a mod instead of yourself individually, if you would
Sure.
like.
No
That's
problem.
all. I'm
And
not.
for everybody here, if you want to email me, my email is simple. It's constitutionalist1778@gmail. So and I am a constitutionalist. That's my self-described one. And, kind of what Matthew and Tim were talking about, they get away with the Second Amendment. Who's to say that our First Amendment isn't going to be taken away? I mean, it's going to snowball. So, but thanks, guys. I really appreciate it, and I'm enjoying the group a lot. So,
Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it. And some of you already know this because I shared it before, and some of you don't. But I immigrated to Australia in the '90s. I served a Christian mission there. I met an Australian girl. She came over to the United States. We got married here, and then I immigrated back to Australia. And so I know what the gun laws are like there. The police officers, they can't carry guns off duty. They got to check them in. Only federal law enforcement agents in Australia that's equivalent to our FBI are allowed to carry off duty. But regular run-of-the-mill constables are targeted. As soon as they get off work, they cannot carry. That's how draconian the laws are. And in order for you to own a gun, you have to belong to a gun club. You also have to competition shoot, and you have to go once a month. And you have to be able to show that you're actively participating. And then, they don't have the Constitution that protects them from coming into your house and checking, but you're supposed to keep the guns and ammo in separate safes in different parts of the house. They're not supposed to be together. And they can come in at any time if you have a gun, to make sure that you're storing it properly and that you don't have more than you're allowed to have. And if you want to hunt, there is no open hunting lands. You have to know someone who's a farmer who has land that will write you a letter that says you have permission to hunt on their land to be able to go out and hunt. And that's what we're looking at here. I mean, it may even get worse than that here, but that's where we're going. They keep championing Australia's gun control as a model for us. And I can tell you it doesn't work. I can tell you the amount of crime there is very high, and it's very underreported globally, nationally, worldly. But I've seen it. I've been involved in it, and they have a mess. It's worse on their hands, I believe, than we have in our hands. Over 50% of the population in Australia, at least about 50% of the population wasn't born in Australia. They're all immigrants. And that's not to say that immigrants are bad. But you've got a lot of different people with different value systems that are involved here, and what's important, what's not important. That's influencing things that are going on there, and whole communities that clash. So, anyways, good fun. Thank you, Scott.
Hey, Matt, on a lighter note, I was in Bahrain about 20 years ago in a bar. Thought the guy was an Englishman. He was an Australian. I spent like $300 paying for that mistake that night.
I bet you did. But, I love Australia. I love Australian culture, and I love the people there. I enjoyed my time there and whatnot, but when I separated from my Australian life, I wanted to put some distance between her and I came back to the United States, and she stayed in Australia where she's from, and I joined the military. And that's the quickest way to heal a broken heart, is join the military and get into boot camp. You don't have time to feel sorry for yourself anymore at that point. Well, Doug, thank you for your time. If you want to stick around, you're still welcome to, Doug, of course. I'd like to turn it over to Jesse, who I've asked to give us a legislative update about what's going on in Maryland. He's been very active, very proactive. He's been sacrificing a lot of his personal time going to the legislature in Maryland and Annapolis, and really going out of his way. So, Jesse, if you want to go ahead and take over, that'd be great. And everybody else, please just mute your microphones. And you're
Matt,
all
I'm going to sign off. I do appreciate it. Y'all keep up the good work, buddy. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. We'll be in
Thanks,
touch.
Scott.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Doug.